Well, greetings to everybody. I do believe we are live. Welcome to a BCRES presentation by Grid Alternatives. I'm Kirsten Freisinger, and I will be emceeing for a little bit tonight. You won't be hearing a lot from me, but I will be talking for just a minute, doing a little bit of housekeeping. Want to welcome everybody tonight. Our presentation this evening is by Grid Alternatives. Colorado Residential Solar Program, narrowing the equity gap and promoting renewables. We're going to start right on time this evening and move through the announcements fairly quickly, so hopefully it's pretty painless, and get right into the presentation. I'll introduce the speakers in just a moment. We've got Solaris Energy as a CRES business partner. We also greatly enjoy the University of Colorado Boulder as a business partner. And just as a great note, that we are going to be discussing moving potentially back to doing in-person events starting in January. And so keep an eye out for our announcements about what we're going to be doing for getting back to in-person events. Those will be vaccinations required, masks, that kind of things due to the regulations of the university. But we're excited to start taking a look at moving back into potentially doing some in-person events. All right, well, the Colorado Renewable Energy Society has 5 chapters. BCRES is our chapter. By the way, we're sharing this event among several chapters tonight. Since we're doing things virtually, we're trying to get a broader audience. So we, I think it's actually advertised under MD CRES, Metro Denver CRES, but we just, we greatly enjoy being able to share these events among our partners. So it gets us a little bit bigger audience. This is a little bit about CRES and what we do. Okay, if you're not a member, let you guys, if you want, you can get a screen capture and you can just go to our website, check out our membership pricing. Please do consider becoming a member. It's a very nominal fee, and you can attend any CRES event across all 5 chapters, virtual and in person, if you're a member. We also greatly look forward to getting some more volunteers. We're starting, we've got a retreat this weekend. Our committee's going to talk about the upcoming goals and activities for next year. And we are really looking for a few more committee members and people who'd like to volunteer with our chapter. Please reach out to Steve Whitaker. His email is here, and you can do a screenshot, you know, or whatever you'd like to do to capture that information. You can find us at Meetup, Instagram, Facebook, on the web, and then there's our email again. So please feel free to use BCRES at cres-energy.org to reach out, and someone will answer any questions that you've got. And CRES has been up and running all during the pandemic. We went virtual, so we do have some in-person events going on at chapters and some virtual events. Please check out Meetup and see what's coming up with the events over the next couple of weeks. We've got quite a bit of activity here. I think what passing an infrastructure bill could mean for Biden's climate agenda sounds really fascinating. We've got our event this evening. November 30th, making energy retrofits for your New Year's resolution, and then Phoenix House fabricated healthy energy efficient. That doesn't sound right, but anyway, check out Meetup if you want to see more about any of these events. Boulder CRES has a long history of trying to help folks who are looking for jobs, and this is a little bit of information on places you can go to look for energy, to look for jobs in the energy efficiency, green energy, renewable energy world. So again, if you want to grab a screenshot of these, that's fine. And feel free to email me at that email that I just talked about, BCRES at cres-energy.org, if you want any of this information. If you would like to ask a question, please enter your questions in the question tab on the GoToWebinar panel. And we don't have any handouts tonight, but Chelsea and Mikkela are going to be using a couple of polls. So you can enter your questions. We will be taking those questions at the end. And we are going to put I tend to like to send the video link out the next day to anybody who registered for the event. And we also post all our videos on our YouTube channel. Those don't happen quite as quickly. But if you want to see a video presentation of this, I will be mailing that out to all registrants, not just the folks that attended. So that'll be coming out hopefully tomorrow. At the end of every year, end of year giving opportunities come up. Please consider joining CRES. That's a great way to support energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean transportation, all the efforts that CRES as a whole promotes. So we will be doing some end of year giving promotions, and please consider seeing what you can do if at all possible. Tell you a little bit about our speakers this evening. From Grid Alternatives, we have Chelsea Gaines. Chelsea joined Grid Alternatives Colorado as the outreach coordinator in 2020. Outside of overseeing the application process, Chelsea builds connections with community organizations and informs the community of the solar programs available to them through Grid. Mikkela holds a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in sustainable food systems from the University of Colorado. And I shortened bios a little bit so we could get on and let them talk. If you'd like to see a little bit more about them, their information will be available at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to conclude and turn it over to Mikkela and Chelsea.
All righty. Well, I just want to say good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Today, what we're going to be discussing, we are Grid Alternatives, and today what we're going to be talking about in our presentation is one, who is Grid Alternatives, energy burden, equity, and barriers in renewable energy, Grid's mission and programs, and if we have enough time today, we'll also go over Grid case studies as well. So again, who we are and what we do. So our mission at Grid is Grid Alternatives envisions a rapid, equitable transition to a world powered by renewable energy that benefits everyone. Our mission is to build community-powered solutions to advance economic and environmental justice through renewable energy. All right, I know that's a mouthful, so I'm gonna break that down a little bit. So how Grid Alternatives came about is our co-founders, they realized that our nation and ultimately the world was gonna move forward with renewable energy. And they knew that certain people were gonna be left out of that conversation, whether it's access to the information, whether it's the feasibility of renewable energy, and just because of historical things along the lines of racism and things like that. So they decided to create Grid Alternatives to provide free solar installation to low to moderate income households. And they also, in the Grid as well, we also train individuals in the skill of solar as well, and it's through a paid opportunity. And we'll go over that a little bit more later in our presentation. So you can go to the next slide. Alrighty, so we have our first poll for the night. Let me set it up. And the question is, how much do you know about the energy burden? Energy burden, what is that? I've heard of the term before, and I'm an expert. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to answer this question. Alrighty, and based off of the answers, we've had 70% of people vote, so that's awesome. So based off of the answers, 38% of you guys are not familiar with energy burden, what that term is. 58% of you have heard the term before, and 4% of you guys are experts. This is exciting, let's dive in. All right, so what is energy burden? So this term means the percentage of income spent on home energy bills. So if you look at how much you make annually, there's a percentage of your annual income that goes to paying your energy bills. And the ideal place for a household to be spending for their energy bills is around 3%. But in terms of when you typically hear the term energy burden, we're talking about people who are not in the 3%. So we're talking about people who are in the high energy burden spectrum or on the severely energy burdened. So what that means. So high energy burden is a term that means more than 6% of someone's income is going to their energy bills. And in America, 25% of US households are high energy burdened, and that number is 30.6 million people in America. And just to put that into perspective a little bit, that's more people are high energy burdened than the amount of people who live in the state of Texas. And the state of Texas is our second most populated state. And according to the 2019 US Census, that number was 28.9 million people. However, 30.6 million people are high energy burdened. And if we look at severely energy burdened, that means more than 10% of a household's income is going towards their energy bills. And in America, 13% of US households are severely energy burdened. And that number is 15.9 million people. And again, just to put that into perspective for you all, that's more people are energy burdened or severely energy burdened than the number of people who live in Massachusetts and New Jersey combined. So just to put some of that in perspective for you. So now what we're going to look at is energy burden in Colorado. So with the energy burden in Colorado, typically energy burden is broken down regionally and nationally. And there are about 9 regions, and Colorado falls within the West North Central region. And also, before I continue moving forward, just let everyone know that all these metrics are publicly accessible to them through ACEEE, which is American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. So you have access to all of this data if you want to look at it a little bit more, and also read their awesome report that they just released in September 2020. So going back into the presentation, Colorado falls within the West and North Central region, and that's Colorado with, I want to say, maybe about like 4 to 6 other states. So from there, on a regional level, they break down the median, the average or regional median energy burden. And for Colorado, and in that region, Colorado falls at 3.1%. And when you look at that number, you're like, oh, wow, you should hear that number. You should be like, wow, that's good. We're doing great. Because again, like I said earlier, when we talk about energy burden, we want households to fall within that 3%. That's the ideal spot. So it's at 3.1%. So that's a good thing, right? However, if you look at Colorado's regional low income median household energy burden, you see that it's at 7.9%. And that's a very huge difference. And if we look at that number again, based off of high energy burden and severely energy burden, they would be qualified or classified as high energy burdened. So when we look at that, and this is important because as we move forward in this presentation, we're going to be talking about equity and why it's important. And again, GRID is found on equity. So we look at that data a lot. So when we move forward, we're going to look at equity and what that looks like in data. And I know a lot of people have, their own interpretation of what equity means. I've heard anything from awesome to it's not a fair system, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So if we look at the data if we look at data in the lenses of income, we can see that here at the top, the median energy burden is about 3.1%, and that's the equal lens of all Coloradans. But if you look at it on a low income lens, which again is less than 20% or 200% of the federal poverty line, you see that is 8.1%. And if we look at it in the low income with the disability, we see that is at 8.7%. And then, so we see that if we didn't take this data onto an equitable lens, that we would just think that it's 3.1 and be like, oh, we did it. But if we look at it with the equitable lens of income, we see that low income folks are disproportionately impacted, and also low income folks with disabilities are also disproportionately impacted. Next slide. If we look at the energy burden with the lens of age and home ownership, again, I'm going to keep the median energy burden at the top just so you can see what that looks like. If we just stop there, that's equality right there. But if we look at these different lenses and different groups of people within age and homeowners, that's what equity looks like. So we have 65 or older, which is classified as senior households. Their energy burden is at 4.2%. And if we look at renters, their energy burden is around 3.1%. And then if we look at homeowners, their energy burden is exactly where it should be. Next slide. And then, of course, when we talk about equity, I think the first thing that always comes up is race and ethnicity. But as you can see, as we're going through these different lenses, equity goes so much further than just race and ethnicity, but also looking at race and ethnicity. If we look at the median energy, it's 3.1, and if we look at white households, non-Hispanic, is at 2.8. So it's actually better than the average national median income and regional as well. And if we look at it, please forgive the misspelling of indigenous. If we look at Native and indigenous households, it's at 4.1%, or sorry, 4.2%, which is higher than the median. And then Black households, 4.1%, and Hispanic households, 3.5%. We look at housing type, and this is important, especially for GRID, because we help a lot of these demographics, right? So we have single family, which is 3.1%, which is a good sweet spot. And then we look at small multifamily units, so 2 to 4 units, we have 3.4. And then also if we look at the metrics in low income multifamily units, so 5 units plus, they're at 5.6. Alrighty, so all of this we're going over all of this data because it's gonna, as we move forward, Mikkela is gonna talk a little bit more about our programs and why that makes sense and why we look at that for our programs. But for before we get there, we're gonna do our poll, and I'm gonna pass it off to Mikkela.
Thanks so much, Chelsea. I really appreciate that. Would you mind actually launching this poll for me? So the next poll that we're going to do is, looking at equity. What do you think are some of the biggest barriers that people face in accessing renewable energy? So your options are cost, interest or education, or feasibility or efficacy. So this could be things like not owning a home or having a bad roof, having too much shading, those types of things. We'll give it just a few more seconds.
Alrighty, so we have about 72% people responded. 57% said cost, 17% said interest, education, and 26% said feasibility and efficacy.
Okay, perfect, thanks. This is actually a trick question because, sorry, the slides are going crazy, because it's actually all of these things that are barriers to renewable energy, to accessing renewable energy. So this is where GRID's programs really come in. We're seeking to overcome those barriers that so many people and families face when trying to access renewable energy and lower their energy burden that Chelsea was just talking about. So I'm going to go through some of GRID's key programs and initiatives that we have in Colorado. Many of these are national as well because we do have offices in other states throughout the country. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about our single family solar program, our workforce development program, our solar garden subscriptions, our multifamily solar programs, and then our clean mobility program. So we have two different programs that fall within our single family solar or residential solar program. You'll often, if you ever talk to us, you'll hear us probably call this the RESI program, RESI. So if I use that throughout the presentation, I'm just talking about residential solar. So throughout both of the programs, which are the weatherization program, which we do with Arapahoe County and Energy Resource Center, and then also our community development block grant program, GRID is handling 100% of the process from start to finish. So that begins with acquiring funds through a grant. We're doing the outreach and application and approval process with each client that we serve. And then we move right into the construction, and we do all of that internally as well. So that's a site visit. We design the system with an engineer based on the home and the energy usage. We also work with the city and the county to do all of the permitting, and we pay for the permits on our end. We of course do the installation, and then we work with the city and the county for the inspection. And then we also work with the utility to get people set up to the grid and make sure that they're getting whatever credits are coming back through, make sure their net meter is installed. And then we do the education piece of it too. What is solar? Why is this important? What will your bill look like after you have a solar system? What is energy burden? Those are all questions that we can answer for clients throughout this process. And just so you know, I did put some asterisks here on the acquiring funds outreach, application, and approval process. And that's because with the weatherization programs that we do, those clients are actually brought into us. We're not doing the outreach, whereas on the community development block grant program, we are. Okay. So the first residential solar program that I want to dive into is our Weatherization Assistance Program, or WAP, also known as the Colorado Energy Office CEO program. So who benefits through this program? It's homeowners who have previously received weatherization services through the Colorado Energy Office, the WAP program. They must be 60% or below AMI guidelines. AMI stands for Area Median Income, and those are guidelines that are set by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they will vary depending on the area. So the Denver metro area guidelines, for example, are different than the guidelines that we'd see in some other rural areas. Some automatic qualifiers for this program are SNAP, LEAF, and TANF. And then we are currently working with both Arapahoe Weatherization and then also Energy Resource Center to administer this program. So the way it works is after a homeowner has gone through the weatherization program with one of these agencies and they've had their home weatherized, they will be referred to us, and we contract with the agency to provide the homeowner with a solar system that is installed at no cost to the homeowner. They own this system outright with no liens or loans against them. The main qualifications, again, are that they have to have already had the weatherization work done. They have to be the homeowner, and then again, they have to meet these income guidelines. So this differs a little bit from our CDBG programs. CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant, and these funds come through cities or counties who have been granted Housing and Urban Development, HUD dollars, for home repairs for low and moderate income families. So we apply for a grant with the city, and the city awards us this money to do these solar installations. So currently we are working in Arapahoe County, excluding Aurora, unincorporated Adams County, and then also the city of Thornton. We are serving low and moderate income homeowners, and one thing that's different from this program that you might notice when looking at the slide is that we serve up to 80% AMI guidelines based on family size, whereas the WAP and weatherization, those programs, those are only going to be 60% of AMI guidelines. So that's a little bit lower threshold for qualifying for the program. So that means that, you know, we're able to serve families who are in this gap area where they're at 80% of that AMI, but they don't qualify for, you know, LEAP assistance or weatherization assistance through these other agencies. Pardon me. So what it is it just like the other program that I just talked about, it's a free solar system that's paid for entirely through the CDBG funds. It reduces a homeowner's electricity bills 50 to 90% over the course of a year for the life of a system. And these systems are designed to last between 20 and 30 years. We do have a very good warranty on the systems as well. So, you know, homeowners really are not incurring any out-of-pocket costs in getting these systems. And then the other thing that I just wanted to make known is that we do currently have a referral program in place. And that's because unlike our other programs that I was just talking about, we do all of the outreach and marketing and client acquisition for these programs. So with our referral program, you know, if you're in the audience tonight and you know someone who you think might qualify for this program because they live in Arapahoe County, unincorporated Adams County, or the city of Thornton, if you refer them to us and they go solar with us, you will get a $200 check for every referral that goes solar with us. So it's a really great program. We're just trying to spread the word. And then I also just wanted to mention too that we, in addition to unincorporated Adams County, will also soon be able to serve residents in the city of Brighton as well. Okay. So that's direct implementation, right? So those two residential programs are awesome for people who own their home and who live in the Denver metro area, because that's where the majority of this work that we do is concentrated. But a lot of people don't own their home, or you know, they don't have a qualifying roof, so they have too much shading, or their roof is too old and can't support the life of the system, or we don't think that the roof is going to last for at least 10 years. And if we don't think a roof is going to last, we're not going to install on that roof. So there's another option, that's indirect implementation through community solar gardens. So with a community solar garden subscription, there is no need for modules to be installed directly on a subscriber's property. Instead, these large arrays are built in convenient areas that are really great for solar production. And then the electrical output is shared by subscribers. So rather than having to own your home or have a qualifying roof, you can participate in this as long as you have an account with the affiliated utility that we're working with, and then you're also income qualified. And the income qualifications vary a little bit depending on who funded the system and where it's based. So if you have any questions about that at the end of the presentation, Chelsea and I are happy to speak to that. I just wanted to throw up a few pictures here of a few different solar arrays that Grid has built in Colorado. I think these are pretty awesome pictures just to show how big these solar arrays can really be. And then I wanted to talk about one, I know that this is kind of targeted to a Boulder audience. So one that we actually have in Boulder, which is a really amazing program, is the Boulder FTC Solar Garden. So this was a solar garden that was funded in full 100% by the city of Boulder. But all of the electricity that is put out from that system is going to benefit residents of the Ponderosa Park mobile home community. It's a really amazing opportunity for these residents because normally it's impossible, or unlikely, I should say, that a company, including Grid, will install a solar system on a mobile home, even if it's owned. And a lot of the mobile home renters in this community are renters, not owners. So this is a way that they are able to offset their electricity bills significantly, even up to 100% at no cost to them, simply by living in this community and then also meeting income qualifications. And then, you know, I know I kind of mentioned that a lot of the residential work that we do is concentrated in more urban areas, but we are very aware that when it comes to equity and energy burden, those in rural areas are often disproportionately affected and have a disproportionately higher energy burden. And so we do a lot of solar gardens in rural communities as well. And here is a list of a few that we have done. And some of the pictures that you saw on the previous slide are actually gardens that were built in these areas, including the picture that's on the background here. Very important to engage people in rural communities as well, especially as we're talking about a just transition to a renewable energy future. Okay, so multifamily solar, this is kind of exciting, and these pictures here are actually very recent, so I'm excited to talk about it. In addition to our residential and our community solar garden programs, we also do multifamily solar. So we work with housing authorities and other housing providers to install solar systems on multifamily residential buildings. Very similar to the other programs in that, you just have to be income qualified to do this. You'll own the system that's associated with the unit and then benefit from all of the electricity savings that come along with it. This was actually just the other night. I'm trying to remember the date. It was just a couple weeks ago. I think October 17th. This is the Flatirons Habitat for Humanity homes in Boulder at the Pella Parkway Habitat Homes. And if you can look at the pictures, you can see a bunch of the solar on their roofs up there. So we installed all of that solar in a partnership with Flatirons Habitat for Humanity. And then we just did a little happy hour kickoff to, unveil the solar. Some of the families came and talked. We had some of our workforce trainees come out and speak. It was just a really lovely night with the community, and we're just thrilled to be able to have partnerships like this and serve homeowners who really need it most. Okay, so switching away from the residential solar installation a little bit. A new exciting program that we actually just launched in Colorado is our Clean Mobility Program. This is a program that we've had in California for a while, but obviously it's different based in Colorado because of the legal landscape and then the utility landscape. So we are working directly with Xcel Energy to manage energy rebates provided for income qualified clients. So the program is designed to reduce the cost of purchasing an electric vehicle, but then also installing an electrical vehicle charger at home, which both of these purchases are usually cost prohibitive to people who have the highest energy burden. And so this program is seeking to alleviate that cost. The eligibility requirements are also 80% of AMI, or area median income, and it's for all of Xcel territory. So this isn't just confined to a certain city or county. It's anywhere that Xcel, the utility provider, is serving. Someone who is an Xcel client or Xcel customer can benefit from this. So it's a $5,500 rebate for a new electric vehicle. And something that's kind of cool about this program is, unlike the federal and state rebates, there's also actually a rebate available for used vehicles of $3,000. And then there's also up to a $1,300 home rewiring rebate as well. And I just want to point out Christian McWilliams, he's our newly hired Clean Mobility Program Manager. He's incredible. And I put his information on here, and he is also a fluent Spanish speaker. So if anyone has any questions, definitely reach out to him about this. And I'm happy to drop that information in the chat as well towards the end of the presentation. All right, so one huge part of everything that we do at Grid, it's not just about serving the clients in our community, the homeowners, the renters, people who are energy burdened. It's also about elevating our labor force. Everyone who needs a job or who is making the transition into renewable energy or is looking to develop technical skills, we want to be there to support them 100% of the way. And so we have multiple workforce development programs. And again, this really underpins the foundation of the work that we do. So the first thing that we do is our installation training program. If you're ever talking to us, we just call it IBT. It's Installation Basic Training. But this is a 5-week program. It is a paid hands-on training program, and it's a competency-based certification program. So there are up to 10 different certificates that are industry recognized that trainees can obtain throughout the course of the program. Of course, they don't have to obtain all 10, but they can, depending on what they want their career path to look like. In order to do that, it usually takes between 130 and 300 hours of in the field work. So the way that our program works is during the first part of the IBT program, the new cohort will come in and they're going to be training in our office with our workforce program manager. And we actually have in our office, in our warehouse, we have mock solar array set up so they can get all that hands-on training right then before ever going on a roof. And then the second part of the program is actually going out and doing installs. So I don't know if you remember, but on the very first slide of this presentation, we had a picture, and it was actually taken on the roof of a Target building, and there were a bunch of modules up there, and that was an early phase in the project towards the end, there were many more mods. But that was a commercial project that we were able to secure funding for solely to bring our trainees on board for and train for solar. To get all 10 certifications, as I was saying, it's between about 130 and 300 hours, which is about 8 to 20 installs. So, maybe over the course of 5 weeks, they're doing 4 installs a week, really getting that hands-on experience. And another really cool part about the installations training program is that it doesn't just end with a training, which again is a paid training. We also do employment opportunities associated with that. So we can help with resume building afterwards. We have connections with different companies in the industry that we can do referrals for. We really want everyone who walks away from our IBT program to be landing a job in the solar industry or in a technical industry that they're interested in. We also have our National Women in Solar program, and this is administered through HQ. But the purpose of this program is we're really looking to provide pathways for women to technical careers. So we really encourage women to sign up for the IBT training program that I just discussed, to consider applying for one of our Solar Core fellowships, or even to volunteer with us on a build. And while things have been disrupted because of COVID and making sure that we're being as safe as possible, we normally do have a very robust volunteer program where volunteers can actually come out and build with us, learn some basic skills, or just get a little bit more educated on what solar is, how it works, the benefits, try their hands at it. So we also have the Solar Core Fellowship, which this is another really nice program. It kind of mirrors what an AmeriCorps fellowship would look like. It's an 11-month program, and it is a paid fellowship. It can be a lot of different things. So there can be outreach fellowship, or training fellowships, or workforce fellowships. It kind of depends on the organizational need, and as well as what the fellow is looking to fulfill in their own education and professional development. Something that's really exciting, I'm not sure who's on the call is familiar with the 2A ballot initiative that passed in Denver, but Grid Alternatives Colorado was one of the first organizations to receive a grant from that funding. It's the Denver Good Green Jobs Award, and it's going to allow us to support 3 Solar Core fellows per year over the course of the next 3 years. So we're really excited about that. If you know anyone who might be interested in a Solar Core fellowship or would just like to learn more, please do refer them our way. And I'm happy to put information in the chat about our workforce development team and who they should talk to. And then finally, we have our Solar Futures program, which we fully understand that interest in solar and job training, all of that really begins at a young age, at the ground level. And so through our Solar Futures program, we actually go into primarily junior high and high schools, but sometimes also elementary school settings. And we provide hands-on experience and education in solar for students. It's something that we've been doing a lot in the Denver public school system, but we're also looking to expand to other parts of the state as well. And I will turn it back over to Chelsea now. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we just threw a lot of awesome information at you guys. So what we're gonna do now is just kind of show you the impact that Grid Colorado has had for local Coloradans. And keep in mind that these metrics are extremely outdated, not extremely outdated, they're about a year outdated, so these numbers are actually way higher than what they present here. But in terms of Grid's impact, we have people. So reduced energy costs means more money invested in people and communities. So over 2,000 households have been served, and these are homeowners and renters who qualify as low income. 22 community facilities have been served, and these are multifamily affordable housing buildings, nonprofits, or other service providers. And over $40 million have been saved for the people that we've helped in lifetime savings from their out-of-pocket expenses to that energy burden that we talked about earlier. Planet. So solar helps environmentally burdened communities see a brighter and clean future for generations to come. So what that means in terms of planet, kilowatt hours. So kilowatt hours is the wattage that is how your utilities, I guess, how they charge you for your hours, right? Or how much energy you're using per hour. There we go. That took a while, but it came out. So we've helped to offset over 400 million kilowatt hours from being coal centric to solar centric. So that's really, really awesome. So what that means is about 300,000 tons of greenhouse gases emissions have been prevented through these installations. And on average, about 64,000, a little bit more than 64,000 cars have been taken off the road from the installations that we've done. And then employment. So again, a huge part of GRID is the workforce development and training people. So our training programs help participants launch new careers in solar. And we've helped over 2,000 people receive hands-on experience. And again, these are participants including volunteers, students, and job trainees. Get hands-on experience in the trade of solar. Total job training hours from our installation basics, solar futures, all of those different programs that Mikkela was talking about earlier, about 21K total job training hours. And this is time spent on our jobs training focused install. So whether that's residential installations or commercial installations, because again, we want to give our trainees a diversified training experience. So if they want to go into commercial, they can, and if they want to go into residential, they can. And then job training partners, and this is a huge, huge part because you know, we can train people all day, but if we're not helping to connect them to jobs, it can kind of get siloed. So GRID works with 17 different job training partners, and these are schools, colleges, vocational programs, community-based organizations, and also solar providers or solar installation providers. So yeah, so we're going to talk about a little bit of some of the issues that we come up across at GRID when it comes to installing solar. And some of those main issues are typically bad or poor roofs. And when I say bad or poor roofs, I don't mean that like someone's roof is like gonna cave in on them at any moment. It just means that their shingles may not be good, the angling of their roof may not be good, the type of material that their roof is made out of. So if it's a tile roof or concrete, we typically at GRID don't install on those types of roofs, and that's just again because we're a nonprofit, and the money that it takes to do that kind of pulls away from another household that we could be helping. So that's what poor or bad and poor roof means. Shading is a huge part as well. So if you have trees in your yard and they're shading your roof, that can hinder solar installation as well. And obviously, you know, GRID, we do want to, one of our hugest impacts is, or our hugest cares about environmental purposes as well. So we don't promote someone chopping down their tree to install solar because it kind of has a negative impact for the environment. But we do recommend, you know, if it's possible, and partnering with counties and municipalities to help people with this as well, to trim trees so that solar can take place and they can have solar savings. But again, sometimes that the tree is just really huge and over it and it's gorgeous and we just don't really want to bother that. The last one is the electrical service panel upgrades. So GRID does do electrical service panel upgrades for solar installations if it's needed, if their electrical panel needs to be upgraded for solar work, which we do come across a lot. However, there is a cost cap typically depending on the program that we're in. So we're at the CEO WAP. We have a cap just in terms of how much can be spent on an install. And then again, just cost overall can become an issue. But typically, if it's around, like if it's over like 5K, then we kind of divert from doing it just because of cost. And that's really our case studies. I kind of went into details here, but we're just going to skip over that and go to the questions just so we can provide enough space for any questions that may come up. And just before we even get into questions, one thing that I want to say is that, again, we are a small nonprofit. So Mikkela and I, if you do call for questions or inquiries about our programs, you will be talking either to Mikkela or I. So that's really awesome. So, you know, if you have questions particularly about this presentation, you know, you'll talk to one of us and we'll be like, yeah, we remember that because we were speaking to you. So that's something that's really awesome as well, as you'll be working hands-on with us. So we'll open it up for questions.
I see the first question that came in from David about accessing AMI guidelines for Denver. I can go ahead and pull that link and I'll put it in the chat. I'll go ahead and move to the next question while we're looking at that. Okay, so the next question comes in from Josh. I'm a solar cells rep in Colorado Springs. Are there any resources I can direct potential clients to assist them in purchasing new residential solar systems? Also, does Grid Alternatives need to set the entire system up separate from any sort of solar contracting company? That's a really good question. In terms of purchasing a new residential solar system, Josh, I guess maybe, is it possible, Kirsten, for him to come off mute and we can talk about this a little bit? I'm curious if he's a solar cells rep, if he's looking for like low income systems that are available or.
Yeah, let's unmute Josh now. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying in case a client is thinking that they can't afford the solar system or they're on a fixed income. I actually have an older gentleman right now that would like to set up a solar system on his house, but he doesn't want to do any sort of financing because he's on a fixed income and things of that nature. So I was wondering if there were any alternatives that might help him out in that particular case. And if so, is that an alternative that I can use through my company, or does Grid Alternative have to basically take over that particular project?
Sure, that's a really great question. I understand now. So in terms of actual like building full-on residential solar systems, that would be a rooftop project. We don't have any projects right now in Colorado Springs. That's not one of our funding areas, unfortunately. But there may be community gardens there actually that we could refer you to, or that we manage ourselves that we could get you enrolled in. If it was one that we were referring you to, that would be something that your company could handle. Whereas if it was something that we were enrolling people in, it just kind of depends on what the system, like what the arrangement is. Sometimes you'll need to go directly through the utility to get enrolled, and other times we handle that enrollment. So that's something I would definitely recommend. You know, if you have our emails here, just reaching out to me or Chelsea after this, and we can set up a bigger call with you to kind of talk about some of the options.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. You want to take the next one, Chelsea, from David?
Yeah, I'm trying to click it up so I can see the big. Okay, so it says link for additional information on extent of weatherization and is there weatherization workforce training? So I guess David, I don't know if you can come up with your mic to talk about this too, but I think what I'm understanding your question is do we have links for the type of weatherization work that takes place, and is there a weatherization workforce training? So I'm going to tackle the latter first. So we do not do workforce training in weatherization. We do, I'm sure that exists somewhere, but Grid really focuses on solar installation. and giving people tools to enter into the trade of solar. But as far as additional information on weatherization, let's see, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna find both ERC and Arapahoe weatherization links for their weatherization programs, and I'll drop them in the chat, and then you can go from there.
Chelsea, will you also share that Colorado Energy Office map that has the different agencies based on location for the weatherization work for people who aren't in the Denver metro? And then just to build a little bit on that too, David, the reason that we don't do weatherization workforce training is because our organization actually isn't doing the weatherization work. So that's done separately by a different agency first, and then Grid comes in to do the solar piece of it. So that's just not the work that we're doing. Okay, a question from Chuck. You're bundling weatherization with rooftop PV. Have you considered a pilot program where you also electrify homes to get them off natural gas? Well, this is a wonderful question. I think I'm going to actually turn it over to Chelsea. She's been at Grid much longer than I have and can probably speak to whether or not this is something our leadership team has considered. Chelsea, do you know?
So Grid, no, has not, because again, that kind of falls underneath weatherization stuff. But that is what weatherization kind of like what they're doing, is to make the home more energy efficient. And in some capacities, that means electrifying the home versus using gas. But Grid, we do not look at that, but we do in terms of policy. I know because again, we're a region and Grid is national. So I know like in California, they are looking at different types of water heaters that are more energy efficient and also help save costs for clients as well. And then also added bonus is great for the environment. So I know that's something that's happening, but Great Colorado, no, we're not. That's not something that we focus on because again, we're not weatherization, but that is something that we do in terms of how, because again, weatherization and solar partner beautifully together. So we're always looking at how to maximize that.
And I just want to build on something that Chelsea mentioned there that we didn't really talk about, but while Grid Colorado is a pretty small team, we do, with our HQ, we do have a pretty large policy team. And so something that Grid as an organization is doing is advocating for renewable energy policy. And part of that is, of course, looking at ways to move away from fossil fuels. So thanks for mentioning that, Chelsea. Okay, the next question is from KK Duviver, and the question is, how big is the area for an AMI? Is it just the whole of Denver area, or is it just Thornton, for example? That's a really good question. It's going to depend on the region. In the Denver metro area, it is pretty large. So Thornton is part of the Denver AMI guidelines. Aurora, Arapahoe, Adams County, those are all part of the same area median income guidelines. So if you're looking it up, you can actually select your county and it will pull up what area you're a part of. And of course, as Chelsea mentioned, if you have any questions, it'll be her or I that you're talking to with this after. So definitely just give us a call and we can pull that up for you and let you know.
The next question is from Adam Warren. He says, they ask, do you partner with Front Range universities for volunteers? That's a great question. So I think when it comes to volunteering, we don't have partners in terms of places that we constantly pull from. I think it's more so when we're always looking for volunteers, to put that out there first. But we don't, I think that's a place that we are currently in office, especially in the midst of COVID, trying to figure out how we can maximize that and also better the system and also bring back volunteering, because right now we currently have paused it in terms of in office, unless they are in the IBT program and things like that. So no, we do not partner with them, but if you have a connection, we would love to utilize that in any way.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we do sometimes work with universities, colleges, and then technical colleges for recruitment for that workforce training. So we do at least have relationships in that way. But like Chelsea was saying, we don't really have formal volunteer programs with them that I'm aware of. Before COVID, we did have some corporate volunteer days, which were really interesting. So corporations could come out and do a build with us and have that type of exposure and learning experience. But that's currently on hold. And then I just see another comment from Adam here too, that electrification can greatly improve indoor air quality. Yes, 100%. I think that, moving away from natural gas and electrifying homes is certainly an amazing, goal and ambition. And if we had the capacity internally, we would love to take something like that on. And, maybe one day we will as we grow. So. Are there any other questions?
It says, is there an upper age limit to get involved as a worker? And no. So if you're capable and you're able-bodied, and you have will, and not even able-bodied, I take that back. That's a bad statement. But if you're willing, that's part of what GRID does, is again that equity. I think sometimes there's stigmas on age and gender and all the things, and we at GRID, we say that doesn't matter. If someone has the capability and is willing and wants to, we will train you.
And just again, to reiterate, it is a paid training program too, with, some job placement opportunities and support afterwards as well. All right, we can give it another, more are coming in.
Nice. Okay, Roxanne says, how much is the paid training, or is this variable?
I'm not actually sure what it is right now. I know that it has changed. I would need to put you in touch with our workforce training program manager.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Which all of our contact information too, if you missed anything on the slides, if you go onto our website, contact information is there as well. And again, we're a very small team. So if you reach out to Chelsea or myself or anyone else on the team, we all know each other and can refer you to the right person. Thank you everyone for the, kind comments too about the work that we're doing coming in and the questions. I really appreciate that. It sounds like we need to follow up with everyone with the weatherization programs linked. Chelsea, did you get those in the chat already, or I didn't?
Yeah, so I just put that. I put that map because it's gonna have all the information, and they can go from there,
perfect. Oh, I see. And wait, if you click on the chat. Okay, perfect. And then the AMI guidelines too. It looks like you put those in as well. So I think we're good on that. So I don't know if there are any more questions, or we should hand it back over to Kirsten.
I think one more just came in, but we can take off the screen. It says, I'm thinking is the training program just for system installation tech positions, or do you also train for system design or system project management?
That's a really great
question. That's a great question. So with our IBT program, it is designed for people to get the hands-on experience of of understanding system installation. And then from there, because we really like the circular model of training and helping them build their resume with GRID if they choose, and then launching them into a good job if they like that as well. So IBT is definitely hands-on with system installation. And then we have internships that can come out of that as well that are also paid, which could be either that Solar Core position or just a regular internship that's not through Solar Core. But also to mention that Solar Core, there is an education stipend that comes out of that once that year is completed, because it is affiliated with AmeriCorps. So that's something to note as well. But the internship, that's where we can dive into those specific interests that people have. But I think we always start with the system installation, because that helps even when you move into design and project management to understand the system and how it works. So yeah.
It does look like we're out of questions. Is there anybody else that has a question that would like to pop in? We do have a few more minutes. I just put everybody's contact information all in the same slide so that we could all be reachable while we're taking those last few questions. Looks like you got one more that came in.
Okay. The question is, if you have a STEM degree such as physics or engineering, can you apply directly for the design positions? Let me see who asked this question. Is it Roxanne? Can we unmute her just so I can get a sense of what she's meaning? If she's meaning like just a job in
sure.
general, or?
1 second, we'll get her on. Go ahead,
So I was
Roxanne.
just piggybacking off of what the previous questioner asked about if there are eventually opportunities for going into the design of these apparatuses. Like if you have a like general understanding of like how voltaics cells work, and if you understand sort of like how circuits and things like that work, are there ways to go directly into what you were talking about the further internships that exist, or do you have to go through the training system first for installation and things like that before you can go and do other things within the opportunities that you have, right? Because
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is no. Anyone can apply towards our internships. I think GRID definitely, we prioritize people who were in our installation basics training and then move to the internship, just because, again, of like that resume building, to give them, a longer time with GRID. So whether it's like a year, 2 years, again, like if they keep going with all of our internships, installation basics, all that stuff that are paid, they can get anywhere from a year to 2 years resume building. However, people can apply whether they've been to our solar installation basic training or not. When you sit down and have that interview with the workforce development team, they'll get into the nitty gritty of like what your background is and all those things, and you guys will work from there.
I saw a couple more questions come in about when we were founded and where, and then how do we finance our operations. So we were founded in 2001 in California. And then in terms of how we finance our operations, I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but we are a nonprofit, so we're financed through donations and grants, those types of things. Some of our main sources of funding are the work with the weatherization agencies that we do. So that money is coming directly through Colorado Energy Office for those installs. And then we're also recipients of the Community Development Block Grant Program. So that allows us to do the installs through that block grant program, which those funds are through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then also, as I was mentioning, sometimes we do commercial builds. So, like the Target build that we did in Westminster, Target as a corporation paid for that build, and that money was used to pay for our trainees and provide that training, the hands-on experience for them. That's what financed that program. And then we also, as I mentioned, just recently received the Denver 2A funding, which will allow us to fund our solar course for the next 3 years. So it's kind of, a hodgepodge of different funding opportunities. Some of them are very consistent, and others are, coming in on a more randomized basis.
Yeah, really, I think to add into that, it was like we also have corporations that sponsor us as well, that are consistent sponsors of us, just because of the work that we do. They're like, oh, this aligns with our mission when it comes to philanthropy, and we want to invest in you. And then also too, something that GRID is really appreciative of is, we call what is the word that I'm looking for? But so we have corporate donors, and then we have like the everyday donor who like, you know, donates like $20, $15, $10, whatever they can. And that 100% helps because all of that goes back into what we do. So we're always super grateful for people who donate like that. And we have a time of the year, typically, it's actually coming up, is one of my favorite times of the year when we as an office, like kind of like shut down for like 2 to 3 hours, and we just can't go through the list of all of our donors and just to let them to thank them. And especially, and when people donate to GRID, they can say if they want their money to be spent directly to a workforce training or things like that. So we can go over metrics and all of that with them if they're interested. And that's one of my favorite times of the year because people can see where their money's going. And also, how often do you get a call saying thank you for your donations when you donate? You know, so it's just a nice touch that we do that we will never stop doing.
Did
Yeah, I
we?
think it's more of a statement. It says you ought to
Yeah.
get on Kyle Clark's list.
Sounds like
Which
a
I'm
comment.
not familiar with that, yeah.
Okay, well,
Right,
I
yeah.
guess, you know, we can call it good here. Oh, someone's asking you for a list or a link for donations. I'm sure that you
Oh,
can
we love
find that.
that. I'll pull one up. Give me just a second.
Okay. And if you'd like to throw it in the chat, I'll take everything that you put in the chat, put it in the email I send out tomorrow with a link to the video too. So anything that you've put in the chat, we'll go back out to all registrants for this webinar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like we've kind of come to a close here. I want to thank Chelsea and Mikkela for your excellent presentation and for taking your time at the end of a long work day. I know we're all a little tired, and it's just awesome when people take their time to do this. So thank you so much. And for the many years, CRES has been in touch with GRID for many, many years. So we hope to continue this relationship and see you around town.
And thank you,
thank
CRES,
so
for
much.
hosting.
Yeah, thank you so much for
You bet.
having us. We're really honored to be here. Right.
Right. Well, we're going to do it again soon. Okay, guys. Thank you very much, and
Good night.
have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Appreciate you being here tonight.